All right, welcome back, everybody, to the Dolphins Country podcast, and we have breaking news. The Dolphins have hired a new head coach. It is Packers defensive coordinator Jeff Hafley. This was kind of in the works for the past 3 or 4 days now. We kind of knew he was the favorite heading in. We interviewed 10 candidates, in this coaching cycle. To me, I had already laid it out. It was a pretty lackluster coaching candidate cycle, and then obviously John Harbaugh became available. Once we saw those, that was fading a bit and that he was only going to interview with the Falcons, the Giants, and the Titans, we knew, okay, we weren't really in the running for John Harbaugh. I said on my IG Live a week and a half ago, I just don't think that we're an attractive enough job to land John Harbaugh at this current moment in time heading into 2026, so I kind of figured that might be a little unrealistic. Then the next domino to fall was Kevin Stefanski. He signs a day later with the Atlanta Falcons, so that's two top of the candidates off the board, and I think at that point, or maybe even before that, the Dolphins really shifted their attention to Jeff Hafley, who might have been their guy all along. Maybe it was the most realistic guy. The second that we named our new GM, John Eric Sullivan, who was with Green Bay for the last 25 years, you kind of knew, connections-wise, it might be Jeff Hafley coming right along with him, and it is. It is Jeff Hafley. Wasn't on the short list of guys that I wanted. Wasn't in my top three. But again, I'm not shocked at the hire. A lot of defensive coordinators in this cycle. And again, outside of the two that were Harbaugh and Stefanski, so Harbaugh's not offense or defense. He's a special teams coordinator, and he's more of just a culture guy. And he would have been a perfect fit for Miami, obviously, because they did need a guy who could set a culture and get us in the right direction. And then Stefanski, obviously, on the offensive side of the ball. I think it's the right side of the ball to go after. But because those two guys are off the board, it's a lot of defensive coordinators or former head coaches that are now defensive coordinators. I thought Robert Saleh could have been in the mix. He was with the Jets, had head coaching experience there with 2.5 years with the Jets. I thought did a decent job considering how bad the Jets are. Had their defense playing really, really well. And now he's doing great things with the 49ers. So I thought maybe he could be on the short list of possible candidates I would be okay with. But if they were going to hire a defensive guy, I really wanted Jesse Minter. I think if you're going to go defense, I would really want a young guy who I think Jesse Minter to me is a little Mike Macdonald light. And you see what Mike Macdonald is doing in Seattle right now. He was kind of like the Sean McVay of defense, a young defensive coordinator who just immediately put his imprints on that. You see what the Seahawks are doing right now. And you saw what Mike Macdonald did in Baltimore when he was their defensive coordinator with that historic 2023 Ravens unit defensively. And you've seen the Ravens defense completely fall off since losing their defensive coordinator, Mike Macdonald. So I was really hoping Jesse Minter, what he's been able to do with the Chargers ever since taking over from Brandon Staley, that defense has gone from bottom 5 to top 5. I think there's just something in the water there with the Ravens and then Michigan. The Harbaughs know what they're doing, and if you're a Harbaugh and you hire a defensive coordinator, you more often than not know what you're doing. And Jesse Minter has completely turned around that Chargers defense, obviously along with Jim Harbaugh. But yeah, so since the Harbaughs were off the table, I was hoping for Jesse Minter. It was not Jesse Minter. Chris Shula would have been cool, obviously, the grandson of legendary Dolphins head coach Don Shula. Again, another unproven guy. He's a first-time coordinator with the Rams. Did a really, really good job this year, but another one of those things where it's like no head coaching experience. But if it was going to be a Minter or a Shula or a Hafley would have been, the last one I would have preferred of, defensive coordinators who have not been a head coach before in the NFL. Hafley has been a head coach in the college level. He was a head coach with Boston College, went 22-26, I believe. So he had a losing record at Boston College. Again, tough to win in Boston College. You see what Bill O'Brien is doing right now at Boston College. But nonetheless, was not a great college head coach. Was a very good college defensive coordinator. Was the defensive coordinator for the Buckeyes with Ohio State. Now, they have a lot of talent there, but made the jump up to the NFL and became the defensive coordinator with the Packers 2 years ago. So he's been the DC in Green Bay for the last 2 years. They've been top 10 in yards defensively the last 2 years, so they've been good. They do have a lot of good players, though, on that defensive side of the ball. So, again, it's more so of, like, is it more schematic? Is it players? But he obviously took over for Joe Barry, who was really bad at defensive coordinator with Green Bay. And you saw Jeff Hafley was really good. So, obviously, it's no surprise he's in the head coaching cycles. And he was on I think he was on Tennessee's short list of finalists. I think he was also on the Raiders' short list of finalists. So, he was going to be a head coach in this cycle, I believe, and the Dolphins are the ones that end up getting him. Again, was not my preferred choice, but I didn't want Brian Flores either. I've been wrong before. I wanted Adam Gase. We got Adam Gase. I didn't want Brian Flores. I wanted Chris Richard. We ended up getting Brian Flores, who was obviously better than Chris Richard. I wanted Mike McDaniel. So sometimes the Dolphins have hired the guy I want us to hire, and sometimes they haven't. This time they haven't. Doesn't mean I'm going to be right. I was kind of wrong about Flores. I didn't want Flores, and he didn't end up being, he only lasted 3 years, but nonetheless, his defense was incredible when he was here, obviously forcing takeaways and all that stuff. And Brian Flores is a defensive mastermind, and he will be a head coach again in this league. But he just didn't get the offensive side of the ball. He just did not. He was very tone deaf to the offensive side of the ball. McDaniel, I wanted him because I thought that's the right side of the ball to go after. He obviously revitalized Tua's career, and then down the stretch, obviously, when it stopped working and it's a copycat league, we weren't able to make those adjustments. We obviously fell off. The Tua injuries caught up with him. I think if Tua's healthy and never gets hurt, McDaniel's probably still here, and we're probably still good. But that's just not how it worked. And obviously, Chris Greer kind of purged the roster a little bit with bringing in mercenaries and not taking care of the offensive line, not taking care of the defensive line at times. And that's where our roster is now. And obviously, it caught up with McDaniel, and he kind of went down with the ship when Tua obviously regressed with the injuries. And the injuries just caught up to Tua. I don't think McDaniel did a horrible job, but unfortunately, it just is what it is. He lasted 4 years, which was longer than Brian Flores' 3 years. It was longer than Adam Gase's 3 years. It was longer than Joe Philbin. McDaniel lasted 4 years, and he had 2 really good ones, and the last 2 were injury-riddled Tua year and then really bad Tua year in this one. I'm not totally sure that McDaniel isn't a better head coach than Jeff Hafley, though. I'm not totally sure the Dolphins just downgraded in head coach. Honestly, if you ask me, I would have just kept McDaniel for this 2026 season because it's going to be a rough season anyways, and I would have liked to see maybe a full season of Quinn Ewers with Mike McDaniel. And if they're really, really bad, then that's fine with me. They're really, really bad. I don't really care about next season in particular because I think it's going to be you got to eat a lot of cap space, as we keep talking about. 2026 is going to be a retooling year. It's going to be very hard, not very flexible to change this roster much. You have to retain your good players, obviously. That's what John Eric Sullivan is coming in here to do. He mentioned yesterday that the Dolphins have 5 building block players. He did not mention Tua as one of those 5 building block players. He mentioned Patrick Paul, he mentioned Aaron Brewer, he mentioned Jalen Waddle, he mentioned Jordan Brooks, and he mentioned Devon Achane as the 5 guys that are our core building block players. So my guess is he'll try to retain all 5 of those guys. And then obviously the rest of the roster, Tyreek Hill probably won't be on the team. Bradley Chubb, I don't think will be on the team. Minkah Fitzpatrick, who knows? Tua, I'm almost positive won't be on the team. These are guys making a lot of money that we owe a lot of money to next year, regardless. We might have to pay these guys to not play for us next year, and that is fine with me because we have to get this thing moving, get the ball rolling on a rebuild, which is what the new GM has come in here to do. For Jeff Hafley, who knows? We'll see. He has to first start out with bringing in an offensive coordinator. That's going to be number one priority, obviously. Defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver is getting head coaching looks right now as we speak. So if he goes and does become a head coach, we will get a comp 3rd round pick if he was to leave and become a head coach. If he doesn't leave and become a head coach, I don't think he would stay because it feels like Jeff Hafley's going to call the defense. So there's really no room now for Anthony Weaver. So my guess is he either becomes a head coach himself or just takes a better defensive coordinator job for an offensive coach who's like, hey, we need a really good defensive coordinator. We like Anthony Weaver. That might be what happens. But either way, Jeff Hafley is the new head coach for the Miami Dolphins. I'm lukewarm on the move. I mean, it's not really an exciting move. It's not an exciting hire. We weren't going to get an exciting hire, I don't think. I mean, Chris Shula would have been exciting for the fans, obviously, because of the lineage there. And there's only been one great Dolphins head coach, and it was a Shula. But that one really wouldn't have excited me. The only thing I would have gotten actually excited about was, again, had they gotten Harbaugh, I would have been over the moon. Had they gotten Stefanski, I would have been really, really, really happy with that. And had they gotten Jesse Minter, I would have been like, I can get behind this. I think he's going to be really, really good. And then Robert Saleh, I think, having been a head coach before, I could have talked myself into it. With Hafley and with Campanelli, Anthony Campanelli, who was here 2 years ago on that 2023 team, he was our linebackers coach the year we had Vic Fangio at DC. The year we scored 70 points that year. The defense was playing really well prior to Jalen Phillips and Van Ginkel going down and Chubb going down. That was the team. That was the team that year. That defense was actually really good. The injuries caught up to us, obviously. But that's just how it goes. But obviously Campanelli was there in that room. He was the linebackers coach for us in that season. He was also getting an interview to be our head coach. Kelvin Shepard, again, former Dolphin player. So that could have been cool. Those could have been cool, but those would not have been exciting. This is going to change the franchise kind of hires. I don't think it would have been. I mean, you could have talked yourself into Campanelli or Calvin Shepard being like a Dan Campbell great locker room, great culture guys. But again, they've never been head coach before on any level, so you really have no idea if that would have worked either. A lot of these guys are unproven. A lot of these defensive coordinators, a lot of these defensive guys that are candidates in this coaching cycle are very, very unproven. I would have liked to see them go after Mike McCarthy a little bit harder. I mean, that's a former Super Bowl champion head coach that won 12 games, 3 straight years with Dallas. Again, we don't have a quarterback though, so it's not a very enticing job, as I keep saying. He had Dak in Dallas, he had Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. There just is no quarterback here in Miami, and there probably won't be for the near future. We don't have a top 10 pick. It's a 1 quarterback draft class with Mendoza going number 1 overall. Next year is the good quarterback draft class, so hopefully we're in position to get one next year. In free agency, does this mean we go after Malik Willis, who was obviously a Green Bay Packer this year? Do we just want to go full Packers mode and bring in their guy that's assistant GM or assistant president of player personnel, John Eric Sullivan, as our new GM, and we're going to bring in Hafley to be our new head coach? Do we just bring in all these Packers and just promote them into Malik Willis, backup quarterback, into starting quarterback in Miami? Do we just go that whole model? We've tried it before. We tried to become the Patriots with Brian Flores, and he just brought a lot of his Patriots buddies along. We try to become the 49ers with Mike McDaniel, who brought a lot of his 49er people along, Mostert and all those other guys. Now it feels like maybe we're trying the Packers model of let's just become the Green Bay Packers and let's see if it works. I don't hate the idea, but we've tried it before 2 times in a row, and of course we fell flat on our face with the other 2. But Green Bay's been a very competent organization for the last 25, 30 years. So trying to follow along with some kind of their mold, their model is not obviously the worst idea in the world. You just got to execute it, and it's not going to be an easy job at all for the GM or the head coach, who we now know will be John Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley. They obviously will work in cahoots to try to get this ship written, but it's going to be very, very difficult. 2026, you got to eat a lot of dead money. Tua's on the books. You got to pay him. We're still going to pay Jalen Ramsey's money. We're still going to pay Bradley Chubb's money. We're still going to pay Tyreek Hill's money. Minka Fitzpatrick has an $18 million cap hit. Bradley Chubb. I mean, there's a lot of guys here, and then you got to figure out what you're going to do with Waddle and Achane and Jordan Brooks. Jordan Brooks and Achane are both heading into the final year of their deals. So I know John Eric Sullivan, his model, his philosophy is retain your good players, retain your talent in the building. That's what Chris Greer really lacked. So hopefully Sully's putting his words into actions, and he's able to keep those guys in the building. Again, 1 year left on their deals. Hopefully they're able to keep those guys in-house. They're obviously really good players. But I also wouldn't totally hate a complete teardown. But by teardown, I don't want to trade our building block players. Although Waddle, I think, in my opinion, I think Waddle could be. You could talk me into trading Waddle at this point in time. But I said that numerous times on numerous different podcasts now. That I think Waddle. I don't know if he's a namestay, but clearly the new GM believes he is. But yeah, I mean overall, like 2019, you got to look to 2019 as almost like a comparison for the Dolphins. Whenever they did trade Tunsil, which I was like, oh my god, we just traded Tunsil. Oh no, ended up being one of the best trades in Dolphins history because we were able to turn Tunsil into like 7 or 8 great players, including Waddle. We don't get Waddle without trading Tunsil. We don't get Bradley Chubb or Tyreek Hill without trading Tunsil. So that was a big move for us. We traded Minka Fitzpatrick, which at the time I was like, why would we do that? But we traded a safety and we got a top 18 pick. That 18th pick became Austin Jackson, who got a second contract. So it's like, those ended up working for us. We didn't win a playoff game, so obviously it ultimately did not end up working. But we got Bradley Chubb, we got Tyreek Hill, we were able to get Tua, we were able to get Robert Hunt, we were able to get Devon Achane. We had these picks that we were able to get players with, and we just didn't end up winning anything with them. Jalen Phillips, we drafted him in the first round, so we were able to make some good picks. We just didn't pan out. But obviously the idea to tear it down was the right idea in 2019. They were going nowhere with Tannehill, and it feels pretty similar right now with Tua. They're just not going to be able to go anywhere right now with Tua the way he's playing. Obviously, with his money situation, they were, I believe, able to trade Tannehill for maybe a 6th or 7th rounder to Tennessee. I don't think they'll be able to trade Tua to anybody because his contract is so much worse than Tannehill's was. I think he's a better player than Tannehill was. Obviously, I think he's a way better player than Tannehill was, but the money was way different than it was 8-9 years ago. So I think if they're gonna be able to trade Tua, they're gonna have to attach a 2nd or 3rd rounder with it, which they can do. But I think that just keeping him on the roster for 1 more year is the financially smarter move. But we'll see what they do with Tua. We'll see what they do at quarterback next year. I have no idea. My guess is that the new GM, John Eric Sullivan, and the new head coach, Jeff Hafley, do not want to have a first season with Tua there still. It feels like that's a kind of a cloud looming over their heads. So I think they want to kick the ball, just kind of get the ball rolling on this new regime. Maybe they bring in their guy Malik Willis. Maybe they go after Mac Jones. Maybe they go after Kirk Cousins. Who knows at this point in time? But the quarterback is a TBD. Maybe it's Quinn Ewers. I don't know. But overall, the Dolphins get Jeff Hafley. I'm lukewarm about it. I'm not excited about it. It's not an exciting hire, but I'm not saying he's bad. He's never been a head coach before, so you have no idea. Let's see what he does with his coaching staff. Let's see how he builds out this coaching staff. That'll get us a little bit more clarity. Obviously, he was in Green Bay with Adam Stenavich, who is the offensive coordinator right now for Green Bay, but he's not calling plays for Green Bay. That would be Matt LaFleur, obviously. So I don't know if Stenavich is going to want to be like a true play-calling offensive coordinator. If he does, we have a vacant spot at OC, obviously, because Mike McDaniel was calling plays for us. So we'll see how that happens. If they're just going to bring over their buddies from the Packers, then that's typically how these things go. It's all a we'll see, though. It's a complete we'll see because we have no idea if Jeff Hafley can be a good NFL head coach or not because he's never been an NFL head coach before. Either way, let's find out. Let's give him 2026 is going to be a very tough year. My philosophy, though, if Jeff Hafley is going to be good, we got to be very, very patient with this because it's going to be a very tough job. I mean, 2026 is not going to be an easy year by any stretch of the imagination. So if he can turn this thing around, we got to be very patient with it. It's got to be like, you got to come in here knowing this may be a tough year. And can we show... I mean, Dan Campbell's first year in Detroit, they were 2-13-1, I think, or 3-13-1. They started 0-10. It was a really, really bad team. And I think he knew that it'd be a very bad team. But could he, in that first draft class with Brad Holmes, get enough building block players, and could they finish strong the following year, which they did? They started 1-6 the next year, too, after an 0-10 start the prior year. And obviously, Dan Campbell went from 1-6 that second year to finishing 9-8. So they won like 8 of their last 10. Missed the playoffs, but was really, really good that second year. And then obviously you saw them take off year 3. So this feels like a 3-year thing for the Dolphins. They have to be patient for 3 years. If he's gone in 3 years, then clearly we don't have much patience in this. But again, no one really lasts more than 3 years here. McDaniel did by 1 year. He lasted a fourth. But no one since Don Shula has left has made it more than 4 years as the Dolphins head coach. And I don't believe this will be a quick turnaround unless they really ace things in 2026 and 2027 in that draft class. I know this year will be really tough, regardless of who the quarterback is, honestly. And then 2027, that's the big year for me. Can the Dolphins make a move in that season to become a really attractive landing spot? If they do, then it won't be too long of a rebuild. We might be back to being competent pretty quickly. If not, we might have to do this again 2 or 3 years down the road with another head coach. But that's all for this episode. Thanks for tuning in. If any other news breaks, we will be here to cover it. And until next time, go Dolphins.